In this lecture, we are going to do a high-level overview of Perplexity. Now, I know I said elsewhere earlier in this course that I wasn't going to do this because I didn't think it was necessary, but the more I've gotten into this course, the more I thought, you know what, it would be a good idea to do a high-level overview of Perplexity separate from Comet. And the reason is that Comet, as I've mentioned, is so tightly integrated into Perplexity, and it would be good to know how Perplexity works at a high level. Now, this is not going to be a 3-hour course on Perplexity. I don't want to do that, but I do want to get you familiar with Perplexity so that you understand maybe a little bit better what Comet is doing, because Comet, basically, when you issue a command in Comet, more than likely, it's going to pass that command off into Perplexity to have Perplexity do whatever research or work needs to be done. Okay, because so Comet and Perplexity are very tightly integrated, where Comet is the browser and Perplexity is the AI search engine that satisfies all search requests. Okay, so just to keep that clear. And you'll also notice that I'm specifically not using the Comet browser to show Perplexity. I want to keep the two separate, because if I were doing this inside of the Comet browser, the two look so similar that you wouldn't necessarily know what's Comet and what's Perplexity. In fact, oftentimes when I've got Comet, the browser loaded, I don't always know whether I'm in Perplexity or Comet, except notice you don't see an assistant up here, which you would see if we were in the Comet browser. Okay, so any case, I'm in Edge right now. I'm in Microsoft Edge. I've loaded Perplexity. Now, I've also subscribed to Perplexity Pro for $20 per month because I find Perplexity incredibly useful. I've used it for months and months and months, and I know it quite well. And so we're just going to spend a few minutes getting familiar with what Perplexity can do. Now, at the same time, I do have the Comet browser running as another instance on my laptop. I'm going to switch over to Comet. All right, so just to show you how similar the two are, and sometimes you don't even know which one are you in, Perplexity or Comet. And by the way, if you've never been to Perplexity, then you'll want to go to www.perplexity.ai. Okay, very simple URL. All right, now I am going to switch over to Comet, and you'll notice that there's not a whole lot of difference, except that I've got my browser toolbar up here, which came over from Chrome, which I explained earlier. And we have the assistant, and we have some buttons up here and links that do various things. But there's not a whole lot of difference between this and what you see in Perplexity. For example, we see this little icon here, and we have home and discover and spaces and all this stuff, which is exactly, I'm going to go back to Edge, which is exactly what we have here: home and discover and spaces and all of our queries or past searches that I've done and so on. All right. Now, one of the first things, of course, that you would ordinarily do in Perplexity is to request or issue a search. Okay, so users can input questions in natural language exactly the same way that you do in Comet. So if we go back to Comet, ask anything. In Perplexity, ask anything, or use @mentioned or a space. Now in Comet, we have ask anything, ampersand for mentions, and or a / for shortcuts. Okay, so it's slightly different, but the idea is the same. This looks almost identical to what you'd see in Perplexity. Okay, now we're back in Perplexity in Edge, and I'm just going to ask it a question. What is lovable AI? Try adding more detail. Perplexity works better when you give more context, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I don't care about that. I'm going to click on send. Very simple query in natural language English. And one of the things that we're going to notice is that Perplexity, it's not interpreting just keywords. And again, when I say Perplexity, Comet's doing the same thing. Comet, Perplexity, they're kind of interchangeable here. But it understands the intent and context of queries, so you get more relevant answers than you would doing a Google search, which just spits out links and a bunch of advertising. So let's click the button here, and it's doing a quick search on lovable. And Another thing you're going to notice is that answers are provided as concise, readable responses. So this is not just a regurgitation of a bunch of links. It's a very readable, high-level overview of what Lovable AI is. And by the way, Lovable, I've mentioned that before in this course. That's the no-coding tool that I use for app development. I really love it. I've got a couple courses on Udemy on Lovable. Great, great product. Okay, so again, answers are provided as readable responses, very nicely formatted, not just a simple list of links. Now, you're also going to notice that when you do a search in Perplexity or Comet again, you get citations to the sources, whether it's an article or a journal or a website or a YouTube video, whatever the case might be. You've got them all listed here. Okay, here's a source, and here's a source, and here's a source, and here's a source, and here's a source. Now you can come up here and look at sources and see what all of the sources that it referenced to generate this response. Now for me, I really like that because these AI models used to have a problem of hallucinating, which means it would just give, if it didn't know an answer, it would make something up, or it would return a best guess. Now that's not really a problem anymore. It's gotten much, much better. But knowing what sources it referenced to generate your answer kind of gives you more confidence that the response that it came back with is accurate. Now, another thing you'll get with Perplexity that you won't get with some other AI models, and there's a number of other AI models. You know, you can go to OpenAI and use ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot. You can go to Anthropic and get one of their models. But what you get with Perplexity, and by the way, those models are available here. We'll get to that in a moment. But one of the things that you get with Perplexity is real-time, you won't get static answers. A lot of these AI models, their knowledge cutoff might be 6 months ago or a year ago. In other words, they have not been trained on any data sources more recent than maybe the end of last year. Well, we're already in August of 2025. And a lot of times, or on occasion, you'll get, let's say you're using ChatGPT and you ask it, what were the baseball scores from last night? Or what were the soccer scores? And it'll come back and say, I don't have knowledge of recent events. My knowledge cutoff date might be November 17th of 2024. That does not happen with Perplexity. Perplexity, unlike these other static LLMs, large language models, combines model intelligence with live web search. Okay, so Perplexity will actively pull current data from the internet, enabling up-to-date answers for everything from research to news to technical fact-finding and so on. And you can control that. And by the way, again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but everything I've said applies to Comet as well, because Comet passes these queries off to Perplexity, and you can control these same things within Comet. But I can come down here, and I can choose, not model, I can choose, well, let me find out where this is. I didn't say it because I had to go back to the original search page. So what you can do is before you issue a query, you can come down here to this globe icon and say set sources for search. And so you can see that web is automatically, or I'm not sure, maybe, I think it's automatically set, or maybe I did that. So I can tell Perplexity, not only do I want you to do your normal research, I want you to search the web for the latest information on whatever it is I'm asking for. Or you can have it search academic papers, or you can have it search social. I find this very, very useful. If I want to get an idea of what people think about a certain product like Lovable or V0, those are all no coding tools, or even Comet or Perplexity, I might want to have it search social sites like Reddit and Stack Overflow and other sites to kind of get a feel for what people are thinking about these various products. Or you can search SEC filings and so on. Okay, so that is a unique feature of Perplexity.